Good morning and welcome, everyone. Appreciate you joining us today for another great webinar with Debbie De Grote as we welcome or wait for Debbie to come in this morning. Wanted to just couple things. If you'll just chat in to make sure the audio is working for you. I want to make sure everyone can hear us loud and clear. Debbie, welcome.
Well, good to see you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Great to be with you again. Looks like we've got some hand raises and audio is working.
Awesome. Good,
Which is
good.
fantastic. Debbie, no.
No slides today. We're just going to go organic and have a great conversation about how to gather reviews, right? Reviews and testimonials, and then a little bit about how to use them. You know, I thought it would be a great topic because if they're using their Landvoice as they should,
Yep.
and creating lots of great conversations and lots of great transactions this year, then we definitely want to be collecting those reviews and using them in a great way. So I'd love to have, I always love to hear new thoughts and ideas around this. So if any of you are doing something really cool that's very effective to gather those reviews and testimonials, please type it in the chat box. We'll just do a little brainstorm here. Maybe if you also want to share, how are you using them and how are you using them to, be your proof and get hired when there's multiple interviews. So anything you want to share around the topic of reviews, go ahead and type that in. Sean, anything you want to say about that as we get started today?
There's a lot to go over with reviews, so I'm excited about this topic. We've been doing a lot of that on the Landvoice side and have really benefited from it. We love you as customers who are customers of Landvoice. We love all the 5-star reviews. I definitely want to get into this, Debbie. You want to talk a little bit about YouTube and Google and all the powerful just software technologies that are out there that can help us grow our business the right way. So I'm excited to hear, and I hope that everyone here with us today will interact and definitely type in comments like what you've asked. I think it's a phenomenal way to learn from each other.
And speaking of that, YouTube, Google, whatever, I'd love to hear what they're using most and where they're getting the most benefit, because that's not my area of expertise. But so you guys have to help me out there. But what I also know, though, is on the other side of it is we have to ask. We have to have a system and a process to collect them. But if we go back a step even further, I read something the other day that we are in the era of the vigilante consumer. Now, this is not just related to real estate. It's just the world at large is so informed and so judgmental and so overrun with sales messages that they're really calloused and jaded. And that often when we meet a new customer, subconsciously, they're looking to catch us making a mistake instead of assuming that we'll do something right. So for example, Sean, with expired and for sale by owner,
okay.
I always knew that in my first 2 or 3 weeks of working with them, I needed to be really on my A++ game. I needed to call them multiple times in the week. I needed to overlove and overservice them until they calmed themselves down, got into rapport with me, and trusted me, because those two groups are looking for you to screw up. And if you don't be on your, A++ game, they'll kick you right to the curb in those first couple of weeks or be very difficult. So I always thought, okay, I have to win the trust and rapport, under promise, over deliver. And I read something once that was really terrific. And it said, ask your client or customer to describe their ideal service scenario. Because see, we all have our thoughts about what we want to do for them or how often we want to communicate with them, but that might not be what they want. So if I said to Sean, Sean, I'm so excited and appreciative that you've listed your home with me, and I'm really looking forward to us working together. And I don't want you to just be happy. I want to wow you with this experience. So can you tell me, for you to be wowed, what would that need to look like? What's the best ways to communicate with you? The best time of day? What are some things you need from me? Just anything you want to share. And then, Sean, as we're working together, I'm going to be going back and touching base again and asking you if anything needs to be adjusted. And see, then I can take all these great notes about what Sean says, and now I can bring that back, put that into my file, and make sure I follow that plan. Then I'm more likely to wow him, right?
Debbie, I hope everyone's writing this down. You and I have got friends that have inboxes that are terrible. And if we email them, they don't even see those things, right? And like it's text only. It's not really a phone call. It's not an email. And that's the world. Like we need to write that down and we need to communicate that, right? We really have to ask how often, how frequently, and more importantly, which way, right? Like, where do you want me communicating with you?
But definitely do the checkup, right? And because I've made that mistake before where I followed what they told me to do. And later they complained about it because they didn't like it, but it is what they told me to do. So you want to keep checking along the way. And then also, when you get towards what people often do is the transaction closes and then they send out an email and say, hey, can you please do this review for me? Well, the people are they're moved, right? They're moved or moving, or I think they're mentally gone to Home Depot, right? So I really like to think about how early on can I get that review? Now, let's say that something I'm going to make up a scenario. It's an expired listing. They expired twice before. Both times they were listed with a discount agent. You came in, listed it at the regular, like a good commission, and did all the right things, got it sold. It went into overbid. They achieved more than they imagined. And you're just now getting that offer signed, accepted, and they are raving about you. Bingo. Get that review right there.
Touch it then. The timing of getting it the right plan.
Yeah, and they're saying, hey, Debbie, I'm so glad, and you're worth every penny. And say, you know what? Would you mind putting that in a review for me? Would you mind talking about that? Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. What if something gets a little tricky later in the deal? Get it early, right? But then also standard practice, I think the week before it closes, because then they're still really engaged with you in the process. And I like to make a phone call like this where I would say, Sean, I wanted to let you know, here's what's going to be happening in the next week. And I just also wanted to take a moment while we have a moment to say thank you. I know you had a lot of choices, and I appreciate that you chose me. And Sean, I hope you were satisfied with the service. And then I pause because I need to let him tell me. Now, there are going to be times, hopefully very few and far between, where they're very demanding people. And no matter what you do or what you did for them, it was not good enough. And you say, I hope you were satisfied. And they say, well, actually, you only called me 3 times a week. I thought I should be called 3 times a day. Now, I could get annoyed by that, or I could say, I want to apologize that I didn't ask you how often you wanted to be contacted. And I appreciate you being willing to share that critique with me. It's very helpful. And I'm going to make a note of that in your file so that if you ever do choose to allow me to assist you again, I will remember that. So I apologize, and I will make sure everything goes smoothly in the next week. And I hope I have another opportunity to serve you. Now, I'm not going to ask him for a review, right?
Right.
But there's actually a lot of studies around the fact that if they get a chance to tell you and you acknowledge it and deal with it, that they vented that and now you move on. And also a lot of their frustration and anger can just be around the stress of the deal. And later when they look back, they feel badly, about that. But most people are going to say, yeah, you are awesome. You are great. Well, then may I ask you, if I make it easy for you, if I send you a link, and you can give them choices if you want, send them multiple links, whatever you guys want to do about where you want that review posted. If I send you that today, when we get off the phone, would you take a moment and do a review for me? It would really be helpful to my business. I would really appreciate it. And they say, oh yeah, sure, I would do that. But then they don't, right? Sometimes they don't. So here's what we've always done, my husband and I. The minute I hang up the phone, send them the link, but then I handwrite a thank you note. And I say, hey, Sean, I so appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And thank you so much for taking the time to do the review for me. And I throw a $5 Starbucks card in there and I pop it in the mail immediately. Well, they didn't do the review yet. I know, I get it. But if they do it, then the card arrives promptly. If they don't do it, there's a thing, psychological, called theory of reciprocity. So they get that Starbucks card and they go, oh, shoot, I forgot to do that. And it's funny, you'll then see them like go in and do it, the same day. And then I calendar 2 weeks. So 2 weeks after I asked Sean, pops up a reminder to me. If he didn't do the review, I give him a call or I send him a text. Hey, Sean, I know you're busy. Just a quick reminder, I'm going to resend it to you so it's at the top of your email. Could you do that for me? Now, then I think it's up to all of you. Do you follow up after that? I know some of you have automated systems that send it out to them, and I think that's fantastic if you do, but it's not going to accomplish the result you want if you are not also actually asking and you're not also following up. So technology to get that for you is great. I've used it before. I found it marginally effective because I think I was relying on it. And if I did the phone call and I did the follow-up, now it was perfectly fine, right?
The successes and the follow-up always, we can't be afraid of that either, right? Being able to just follow up with the customer and communicate. Yeah.
So two other things. Sometimes they will not do the review because they don't like to sit down and write it or figure out what to say. So what I've had them say to me before is, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do the review. What do you want me to say? And that's always a little awkward. And
people even almost want it typed out for them, right?
They do.
Yeah.
And actually I will do that for them. So what I will do is I'll go back and I'll say, well, in our time together, Sean, I heard you say this, and I heard you say this, and I heard you say this. Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Would you like me to put that in writing? Send it with the link. You can tweak it, adjust it. Would that make it easier for you just to cut and paste? Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Please write it for me. Very common. And just because they don't want to do it, right? And then what was the other one I was just thinking of? So writing it for them, sending the link, the reminders. Oh, shoot. I know it'll come back from me. I'm just looking at some of these.
While you're thinking through that,
comments.
Yeah, I think we can acknowledge, listen, I know you're really busy, and this is really important to me in my business. If I can just write down 2 or 3 of the highlights of things that happened during this transaction, and then you can tweak that and make it your own words, would that help? Would that be a benefit to you?
Yep. And I did remember, by the way, all of you, this is a very cool brain technique. When you're trying to remember something, the harder you try, the less you'll remember. If you switch gears and go a different direction, it'll come right back to you. So here's the one thing I was going to say. Get some teeth into these reviews. And here's what I mean by that. It's wonderful if they say you're just a lovely person and service was great. but that's not what I really want to hear. So I kind of feed them when they're going to do that review. Say, you know, Sean, if you wouldn't mind mentioning that you were listed previously before with 2 discount brokers, what that experience was like, and how you felt about working with me, paying a higher rate of commission. Would you mind saying that? Right? So I want to kind of feed them a little bit the things, because what I want your reviews to showcase is got me more money, did what no one else could, worth every penny, right? Like I want, because what do they care about? They care about money in their pocket.
100%. If they're a FSBO, Debbie, and they got them more money than just selling it on their own, we should be highlighting that, right?
Exactly.
If it came from an open house, we should talk through why and how. But yes.
Yeah. And for those of you, like Robert's talking about actual letters, my husband had actual letters from, you know, years ago on file, and I made him take 5 a day and call those people and send them a copy of their letter and send them the link and ask them if they would mind taking a piece of it and cut and paste and put the online review. And that was just a project he worked through, 5 per day. And then how to use them. All right. So let's say, by the way, you never have too many. So keep them coming. So let's say that you've got, I'm going to make up a number, 100. I always encourage our clients to deliver a pre-listing package before they go out on a listing appointment. We also encourage our clients to have a buyer consultation package that they give the buyers. Those reviews should be included in those packages. And in fact, if you have a significant amount, you might even want to do a separate little booklet, 100 reasons to list with Debbie De Grote, or, you know, amazing stories of success, whatever you want to title it. And it's just a separate booklet that's all your reviews. Now, if you're giving them to your seller, I would put the seller reviews on the top, the buyer reviews on the bottom. If it's for your buyer, just turn it over. Buyer reviews on the top, seller on the bottom, because they're usually maybe going to be both, or they're only going to scan through those first few anyhow, but you've got all of those reviews in there. And just to be strategic, don't just throw them all in there. Pick your super stellar ones, put those at the top, because again, they're just going to flip through a few. And I like to italicize or highlight when they say, got me more money, you know, listed with discount broker, disaster, listed with Debbie, so glad I did, worth every penny. So I like to bold or highlight those key phrases because they're just going to basically flip through that book, right? And I do like to put the person's name. I don't put their phone number, but I put their name. You know, you might put their name, you might put their city, whatever you choose. And I will tell people, if you'd actually like to speak to these people, then I will reach out to them in advance and get their permission to release their phone number. I've almost never had anyone do that. I've had a couple of times, super analytical people ask for a few phone numbers, which I then called the client and they said, sure, no problem. And then, of course, we can add a testimonial to a postcard you mail. You can interview and post that on social media. You can post them on your website. You know, in the 6 ways psychologically that people are persuaded, and this isn't about real estate, this is life in general. One is social proof. So social proof are reviews and testimonials. Another one is authority. So if you're recognized by a high-level authority, or you've got, you know, like one of our clients, Ernie Carswell, his client is Katy Perry, to name a few. But if you saw, Katy Perry, Fergie is one of his clients. So if you saw in his reviews, Katy Perry and Fergie, I think that would be considered authority, right? It would be like, whoa, that's a pretty big person to say that he's amazing. And theory of reciprocity, that's another one. If you do something for someone, they're more likely to return the favor. You've done an amazing job. You've exceeded their expectations. It's a reasonable, and in fact, it makes them feel better if they can actually do something for you. So kind of cool, right? But guys, it's not hard to do it, but most agents don't do a good job with it. And it's simply because they don't have a process or they're too shy. But remember, theory of reciprocity, it's a real thing. You know, if you're flying, let's say you're on Southwest Airline and you hurt your shoulder at the gym and you're trying to get your bag up and someone takes it and puts it there for you and takes your jacket and puts it there for you and closes the bin, that feeling you get of, oh, I'm so grateful. But it's also an uncomfortable feeling, right? Because it's like, I got to pay that back. Here, take my drink ticket. That's theory of reciprocity. They want to pay back the favor. You're simply asking for a review. And I think it's even easier in today's world than it was 20 years ago, because every business thrives on reviews. And it's just now so embedded in our culture that it's normal, right?
It's the economy we now live in, Debbie. I don't go out to eat anymore without looking at a few reviews, right?
Right.
And when we're looking for that licensed professional in our life, people are going to look at reviews. It's just where we are now.
And by the way, it's going to happen. Somebody might post a bad review about you, some mean person, some crazy person. It can happen in business. And so there's a little bit of an art of responding to that, of not to appear overly defensive. I'm trying to think of one my daughter was telling me about. It was some restaurant, and it was a high-end restaurant. And, you know, everybody knows it's a high-end restaurant. And I think the lady was posting that, well, I just want to say, sure, the restaurant's nice, service was fine, but the prices are outrageous. Okay, but it wasn't represented to be McDonald's, right? And the owner just replied very graciously and said, you know, I can appreciate you're right. We are considered a high-end restaurant. And I hope you enjoyed the experience. And I apologize that you were not aware when you booked your reservation or something. It was just kind of gracious. Another lady I saw posted a review. It was a doctor. It's actually a friend of mine. She's a gynecologist, and she is pretty direct, high D person. And this lady was very, very overweight and pregnant. And she was worried about her, and she had diabetes and the baby wasn't doing it well. And she had said to her in a moment, I think, of frustration, you got to stop gaining weight. You are getting so fat that you're putting your health and your baby's health at risk. She was trying to get her attention. Well, I probably shouldn't have done that. But then the review later was, she's terrible. She called me fat. Well, what happened, though, is the lady adjusted some things, delivered a healthy baby, you know, thank goodness, but she posted that bad review, right? And so my friend posted back, I apologize for using that word and that approach. It was not acceptable. And it was in my frustration to get your attention, to keep you and your baby healthy. It was still wrong to do it, right? So, you know, and people, haven't you ever read where there's like 100 great reviews and then there's one that's really crazy, and everybody knows, they go crazy. They're just crazy. So don't over stress. But yeah, you got to watch it and be mindful and reply as graciously as you can. So I know we only have a couple of minutes, and some really amazing things in the chat box. So I don't know if there's anything there, Sean, you want to highlight. I do see.
Yeah,
Ebony said she gets a review as soon as when the client's excited right away while the excitement is there, which is awesome.
Debbie, one thing that just came to mind as you were talking, can you give any feedback? I know this is a little bit off topic, but you talked about the book that you come with testimonials and a listing presentation. What does that look like for most of your clients as you coach people forward?
Well, if it's a pre-listing package, it's fine if it's big and beefy and fat.
Okay.
Because it's the thud factor. Now, if you're actually going into the table to the appointment, you'd really want to extract the heart of the most critical pages that discuss who is your company, why should they care, who are you, and why does that matter, and what are you going to do to sell their home? Flipping it around to the buyer, who's your company, how's that going to serve the buyer, who are you, why is that going to help the buyer, what are you going to do on those buyer services? So those actual meetings, less information, critical information, but a buyer consult package or a pre-list package, it's okay if you just took literally your company's listing package, which might be 46 pages long.
Right.
And add in your bio, add in any special custom pieces, add in your reviews. In our buyer package, we always had our bio, and then we had a flow chart of the process of a transaction. And then we would have everything we're going to do to serve that buyer, which, by the way, NAR has a report, National Association of Realtors. If you Google NAR 105 ways, they actually have a report you can print and download and print that has 105 things a buyer agent does for a buyer. And then you would have potentially vendor referrals, maybe glossary of real estate terms, which, by the way, flow chart of the process in your state, glossary of terms, Google it, you'll find it, pull it offline, pop it in there. And then, of course, your reviews. And
two other Sorry to cut you off, Debbie.
No,
Two other questions coming in. I know we're short on time here. One, do you recommend when sending the client a package book or call to go over, or just send them to review on their own? Okay.
Typically, you're going to deliver it to them, let them review on their own. And then when you have your meeting, you're going to review the highlights, right? And then where are the best places to put your reviews? I had someone that did a really great job at this once, and they said, look for the places where it's not overly saturated, like, and I think having some on each one, so you may want to make sure you have some on each. That is less my area of expertise than how to get them. But I think that bottom line, guys, if you have them, you're winning. There are so many ways to use them. And Brittany, does anyone know of a platform that collects and automatically syndicates the review to Google and Facebook? I don't know. I've not heard of that, but Google is your friend, Brittany. So Google that question. If there is a company out there, it'll pop up. But then check their reviews.
That's right. I've used a couple over the years, but nothing currently, Debbie, so I don't have a recommendation either.
I mean, I've had some that would collect it for you, but then not that automatically posted it. Guy, my husband had not, done a great job getting them years ago. And he just did his sphere calls and then discussed the transaction with them, and asked for it. And they actually, they did it. A lot of them did it. I'd say 2 out of 4 would usually get it done. So you just and it's a good excuse to go back.
Check in with your database,
and I know
right?
we've got to run here, but Stephanie just popped up the link. If any of you feel that it's time for a coach and you'd like our help, then just go to that link for the complimentary strategy session with me to find out what does it look like here at Forward to work with us. There is no, no contract here. And we're always happy to have that conversation. And Sean, they're asking, will they get a copy of the recording?
We were sending the recording out on our first few, Debbie. We're now posting it to the Landvoice YouTube page, and that'll be there on Monday or Tuesday next week. So go back and watch future trainings and recordings with Debbie, as well as watch for this next one next week.
Awesome. All right, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.